I just got done working out and I have the craziest story from my life stuck in my head, and y'all love my story time, so I want to tell it. If you're a part of my TikTok for a long time, you know my stalker story, how I was stalked by this guy. Recently, a mugshot of his popped up on my Facebook and I saw a bunch of girls had commented underneath it. If you don't know the story, I was in the psych ward for trying to end my own life, and I met this guy there who was around my same age. I met a friend group that was all around my same age. Fast forward into the future, and I would get engaged with a girl I met in the psych ward. Bad choices. And I would also party with this group of friends when we all got out. It is recommended that you never make friends in the psych ward, and I had to learn this lesson so very fucking hard. I was in the psych ward because I was assaulted at my job. I was a patient transport individual. I used my EMT license from high school to become a patient transport for a major hospital in Fort Worth. I'm this patient transport and I'm assaulted on the job in an elevator, a back elevator, and I lose my mind and my wrists at work. I had tried to hold in the emotional distress from the assault and I just couldn't. So anyways, I lost my mind and tried to end my life at work. Ended up going to the psych ward and met these 3 individuals that I would end up partying with. While I was in the psych ward, there was a big board, and this is how I know that my memory is correct in every circumstance for the rest of my life. First off, I was drugged out of my mind while I was in the psych ward. This is probably gonna be a multi-part series, but I was drugged out of my mind in that psych ward. The first 2 days I was there, I was in so much distress because they drugged me to the point where I was sleeping 24/7, and if I wasn't asleep, I was having trouble sitting up on my own, and I was drooling on myself. I know that like when someone comes in and they're a threat to themselves, they want to sedate them, and trust me, bitch, I was like 2 breaths away from probably needing life support. My respirations were slow, real slow, and I didn't give a shit about nothing. That's how you know that they really had me fucked up. Because a bitch's biggest problem was her anxiety. So anyways, I could probably tell you a whole story time about my time in the psych ward because I have a notorious habit of nicknaming everybody. I can tell the story without actually giving out any names too. I went to the psych ward because I tried to exit stage left. They looked at my injuries and determined that I would just need to leave them uncovered at my time there. I had done a number on myself, but I had stopped the bleeding before I got there, and because I kind of delayed my own care by trying to hide what I had done, I had gone past the point of being allowed to get stitches. So I just had these giant open wounds on my arm that were, for the most part, healing well and scabbed over because my method of choice was actually something that didn't separate the skin far. All that to be said, I was admitted and I was stripped of my shoelaces and my razors, which if you know me, I don't like hair anywhere. I don't keep hair on my body. So that was probably the most insulting part about being admitted to the hospital was like, I had to go and have hairy armpits. No shoelaces, no phone, no nothing. Okay. In true me fashion, when I get truly stressed, what the hell I do is I do not eat. I was actually in trouble for the first 3 days I was there because I didn't eat a single thing, to the point where I had extra therapy sessions on top of my daily visit to the psychiatrist where they would sit me down and be like, hey, ice cream fridge is over here. You must eat or you're gonna get an NG tube soon. I was very thin back then, even probably thinner than I am now. So I started drinking some juice around day 4. One thing about me is I don't like to gag or vomit, and NG tubes are not fun. During my profession, I've watched them be put in. I've also watched like bone marrow aspirations and been in the room for it, full gown PPE. Like, I've seen a lot. During my career, some doctors pulled me to the side as, you know, an EMT patient transport basically, and were like, hey, you want to assist us to do CPR? And I was like, okay, just for a learning experience at the community hospital. And I've done CPR on people before and cracked their ribs. It's gnarly. But I digress. All that to say, I'm in the hospital with people, and I noticed more people my age starting to come in. I was like a sneeze away from being in the adolescent unit. I was barely allowed in the adult unit. I remember there being a debate whether I was going to be in the adolescent unit or the adult unit. And I was like a sneeze into the adult unit. There were quite a few characters there. There was an older, gruff-looking man that we called Kitchen. Kitchen, during our stay, would take apart his sink and prove to us that it was not a completely safe psych ward and that you could actually use metal pieces of your sink to your wrists. And he did while we were all there, and we all saw it, and it was crazy. We would all also wait really late to get our sleep meds and then fight the sleep meds so that it would make us feel like we were drinking, and that was bad. But it was also kind of fun. You were supposed to attend these classes throughout the day that they would host. I didn't for the first several days. I've always found the material, like in the IOPs, the PHPs, and the hospitalizations, to be really used up and like not top tier. They were just saying things I would normally hear at IOP. I had gone through IOP, which is a 6-week program 3 times. So 18 weeks of the same curriculum just to be recycled into a stay the night camp sucks. And honestly, if I'm being honest about being someone who's been inside the system, the only thing you learn inside the system with the shitty, used up, washed up curriculum and over medicating people is how to form worse habits and how to be better at not getting caught. Because in our little subgroups, that's what we were doing, was talking about how can we improve this behavior without someone noticing? How can I, like the anorexics were like, how can I eat less without passing out? The cutters were like, how can I do this to where it's hidden more? Like, those were the internal dialogues that the staff wasn't hearing, that were conversations that we were all having. The people that were allowed coffee would give it to the anorexics. The anorexics would drink the coffee, the caffeine, to keep them from getting hungry. And we all learned that the psychiatrist, all they needed to hear to give you outdoor privileges was saying, oh, and I feel better today. And then you were allowed to literally go outside and touch grass. Took me 7 days of being stubborn to realize that no medication that they were gonna shove down my throat was gonna make me stop hating my life and stop reliving my assaults. So just might as well lie, because I wasn't about to live there for the rest of my life. So I did. On day 7, I was like, woo, Lord, Jesus, Lord, I feel great. And I'm a menace. I was not a good kid, fresh adult in the psych ward. Like, I'm a whole person with a career, but like, I kind of got into this playful kid headspace around other kids my age, fresh 18, 19s girls. And so we were like tossing papers that said shit back and forth. We didn't have our phones. What did you expect us to do? And the techs would get so mad. They would shove us in our room and shut the door, and we'd be like, what's the matter? And like taunt them. And it wasn't lovely. But you know what? When you're on those medications, they make you act very out of character, especially when you're like drugged to the point where you literally don't feel your body or your mind or feel like yourself at all. So then you build this tolerance where the drugging that they're giving you doesn't feel so intense. You have this tolerance, and you learn to tolerate and work. You have a workable level of the medication in your system, and you built this tolerance so you can actually like be up and not just do stuff like sleep all day. I'm sure starting eating helped me metabolize the medications better. I don't know. Every day we had to report at 6 a.m. to get our vitals done and our medications, and it fucking sucked. And then every 3rd day we got our blood drawn to make sure the medications that they were throwing us on that were super intense weren't damaging our kidneys. So all that to be said, I met 2 girls that were there and a guy, and the guy was flirting with me the entire time we were in the psych ward, telling me how hot it was that I did what I did. Yeah. But the biggest thing about my stay at the psych ward was there was this big board behind the nurse's station. They were in a glass box because they're afraid of us, I guess. There's nothing more demoralizing than being treated like a zoo animal when you're sick, but you know, I digress. There's a big board, and everyone had an S next to their name except for Old Boy Stalker Pants. We'll call him Old Boy Stalker Pants. So let's circle back around to how the story started. Recently, it's almost 10 years later, I saw a mugshot of him being arrested. I always watch out for his mugshots, but it was on my Facebook, and I'm not friends with him, duh. And all these girls that had liked the fact that he had gone to jail and said, finally. So what did I do? I reached out to each girl who had liked the post one by one to ask how they knew him and if they had also almost been by him, because I almost had been. My interaction with this man ended with a pillow being held over my face until he thought I had stopped breathing. Welcome to part 2.